Hi, Matthew Holt with the Healthcare Blog on the THCV Spotlight. I'm here with V. Bento, but Virgilio, I think is his correct name, but everyone uses V, I understand. V is the CEO of Sword Health. And for those of you who haven't been paying attention, Sword is one of the major MSK, virtual MSK providers, um, commonly linked with their friends and rivals at Hinge, who very recently went public. But certainly it's one of the larger players in digital health. And he's been making some waves recently, and we've had a little bit of back and forth on LinkedIn recently. So I thought we would come on and talk about it. So before we get into the exciting stuff, well, not exciting stuff, but the stuff that we've been contentious about, just give me the basic story. You started this business in Portugal, which I think is where you still are. Uh, More than a decade ago, I
Yeah,
understand. And just tell me a bit about the progress and how you've built out the business.
yeah. So actually, I'm currently in Porto, but in Portugal. But again, as you can imagine, I'm always all over the place, right?
Sure.
Especially it
But
comes with the
most of your business is in America. I'm correct. There
oh,
are
99.9
So you're an
percent of
American business and you're
of
hanging in
US.
Portugal. Most Americans hang in Portugal anyway, from what I can tell.
I not again. I'm biased, but I think it's a good gig. And so We started in 2015. I started because of a personal motivation to solve how people access care, right? And then we spent the last 4 years after launching Sword as a company after my PhD. We spent that basically in the lab, just developing the technology, getting the clinical validation done, and solving several technological problems. Because we don't believe that in healthcare you should like take shortcuts or move fast and break things, right? So we took our time to get to the market, and and then we finally launched in January 2020. Since then, we launched with our physical pain care solution, which we call it Thrive. That solution took off very quickly, started going very, very fast. Then, after 2 years after that, in 2022, we launched our pelvic health solution, our women's physical health solution, Bloom. And that solution started also accelerating very, very fast. And then after that, we launched a couple of other solutions. And the most exciting one that we launched recently was our expansion into the mental health space. And so our goal is really there's this misconception that Sword is an MSK company, right? When in fact, what we want to use is AI combined with human clinicians to reinvent how people access care, how we recover people back to a full life. And we expect to do that across all areas of care delivery.
Okay, well that sounds even more ambitious than what you've already done. So as you know, use Sword via Blue Shield California. And I think the initial technology was that you strapped, and I had this thing where you strapped sensors to your legs, but now you've moved away from that, right? And you now have
Yeah, we built a new device which we call the ThrivePad, right? So
yep,
it's this device. It was built by us, right? Designed by us, everything from the hardware, the firmware. It has two cameras, it has multiple microphones, and it was developed specifically to be able to do computer vision and motion quantification through the cameras in high quality, so that members don't have to strap the sensors, right?
right.
Because again, it's really about like getting improved usability and patient experience. And so if you just switch the drive pad, it with your movements, it's much more seamless.
Yeah, and it strikes me that in general, that's a fabulous idea because you've then got the ability to track what happened to people over time, perhaps in
Yeah.
an easier way. But I actually felt that the sensors worked for what they were. They worked pretty well, and I was clearly for what
Actually, the
worth it.
performance of the sensors was quite good. The problem is like you need like for our lower limb, like if you were recovering from your knee pain, you had to strap five sensors,
Yeah.
right? Honestly, that's a little bit too much.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I would say that compared to like getting in your car and driving to a physical therapist and all this.
100% in agreement. Yes,
Now,
yes.
so that's where you're on the MSK stuff. We can talk about the public health and the mental health in a second. Um, to, what I two things that I think are interesting. One is you've made some comments about moving towards there was in my process, which was only a year ago now, there was a coach who I had a call with, and then there was messaging back and forth, and it was actually pretty helpful.
A physical therapist.
But what's your sense about where you end up between human coaches and AI? What's that? Where are you now? Where do you think that ends up?
So one quick clarification: we don't use coaches at all. We don't have coaches. We use doctors of physical therapy, right? Because we believe that a clinical condition needs to be treated by someone with clinical expertise, right? And that's like a stance that we have, which is, again, very public in the market. And so what we believe is that AI should augment the doctor of physical therapy in the case of physical pain care, right? But it's critical that the clinician is always in the loop, right? And so, and then also, honestly, it's not like healthcare is the one size fits all, right? And so we see that. So one example is when members enroll in one of our programs, they can choose either to have a call with the clinical specialist that is going to manage their care, or do everything asynchronously and just text with the clinical specialist. And we have folks that prefer to have the call, folks that prefer to not have the call and start the program immediately. And so we try to like infuse optionality so that members seek what makes more sense to them.
All right, very good. But in terms of using sort of AI for communication back with the members, is that something that is now a large part of the program? I think mine was all human to human texting.
It's human to human texting. So there are two different layers. So the therapy session that you do independently at home, that's done with Phoenix, our AI care specialist, right? And the reason why it's with Phoenix and not with the human is because then you remove all barriers in terms of access to care. You can do your sessions at 6 a.m. In your pajamas at 11 p.m., right? Like AI really drives lots of value there in terms of like you can access whenever you want, wherever you want, right? And then you have Phoenix looking at what you've just the session data and proposing to the clinician, to the doctor of physical therapy, how they should change the program and which message they should send you, but nothing goes out without getting approved and validated by the doctor of physical therapy, right? And so, and lots of times, again, it's the doctor of physical therapy just deleting the message and writing one message because they think it's not the right message to send, right? So that's the model where we have the clinician in the loop, where no communication is sent to the patient if it's not a communication validated and written by the clinician that is taking care of you.
But they're getting data back in a way they wouldn't, which I think is the great thing about virtual physical therapy. They're getting data back. The clinician is getting data back they just wouldn't get, especially if the patient was at home, allegedly doing their exercises between sessions.
We measure the range of motion. We measure if you are controlling your posture or not. We do the same. Phoenix does the same analysis as a physical therapist will do if they were in a clinic looking at you performing the therapeutic exercises, right? And that data is very, very important. Otherwise, how do you manage the program, right? How do you change the program, right? If you don't know that this week you are doing a range of motion of 47 degrees and last week you were doing it 37 degrees, right? So there's improvement. And so the data piece, which we were always very focused on, it's critical. Otherwise, what's the role of the clinician?
All right. So let's talk a bit about how it's organized. So I did mine. I don't know if this is usual for you via Blue Shield of California. They had a company called Solera, which then sort of has a list of things you can choose, and they're choosing you. And I was somewhat surprised when I did mine as to how much was being billed to Blue Shield of California. It worked out somewhat equivalent to a in-house physical therapist, a little bit cheaper, but not substantially cheaper than an in-house physical therapist. And I made a remark about this. You said it was something to do with your contract with Solera. How do you typically get paid, and what do you typically get paid for a session? And what's the relative cost of a in-person session to one of yours?
So this is public. So that varies a little bit, but on average, we have like a price point of roughly $1,000. And we charge that price point according to our outcomes pricing model, right? And our outcomes pricing model, which we are very proud of, charges only 50% upfront when the member does the first session. And by then, you already had a call with the doctor of physical therapy, with the clinician. We already sent you the device with the ThrivePad and all of that. And so those 50% really just covers the cost. We don't see a profit, right? And then we only charge the other 50%, and that's why it's called outcomes pricing, if the member significantly improves, right? And so that's why we only get paid we only really see a profit if we drive a significant clinical improvement of the patient. And that's how you usually pricing. And that we launched this last year because it clearly aligns the value with our clients. Because you don't want to be paying 30 sessions, either traditional physical therapy or as some of our competitors do, where you are paying for a session and you could pay 30, 40 sessions and the member is not seeing any kind of improvement, right? Like that's not value. Value is the patient is improved, because even if you look from an ROI perspective, from a cost savings perspective, it's only when the member recovers that they are not going to seek a surgery and all of the other costly stuff, right? So that's how we align value with our clients.
So is that I mean, that sounds great. Is that a change? Because I think when I was doing it, it was much more being paid by a number of sessions, and then this was a year ago.
We launched it last year.
Okay,
yes,
so that's and I think that makes a lot of sense. I was surprised, as I said, how much the charge was. Of course, I don't know how much went to you, how much went to Solera, and what was going on in the background.
There's some nuance there, but also the reason outside of that point, there's some nuance there, but outside of that, other than that. The reason why we launched the outcomes pricing was because we were seeing that like a member engaging with the program has value, but the real value is did the member improved or not, right? Because you could, yeah, please.
And on that point, how do you tell what kind of integration back into either claims or the members' doctor? How do you know if they're avoiding surgery? Obviously, you've got some indication as to their range of motion improve, and they feel better from
we have two different layers. So we have the outcomes pricing, where we measure the clinical outcome depending on which condition are we treating you. We use the clinical scales that are usually used in that condition. As for mental health, we will be using PHQ-9 and GAT-7 for depression and anxiety, which are again accepted clinical scales. Regarding your question, how do you know if we save that surgery or not? By the end of the year, we have a PG, a performance guarantee on ROI, where we guarantee you that for each $1 that you spend on us, we save you $2 in healthcare costs. And we measure that through claims, right? So it's a time study, and we do that with all of our clients. Again, clients can use the methodology, which is non-claims methodology, or using the claims methodology. We are okay with each one, and that's how we guarantee to clients that the clinical improvement that they are seeing with their members or with our members is driving cost savings. And we are very proud in that regard that we never lost a client due to ROI, due to lack of ROI.
And the clients are they predominantly health plans or predominantly employers or some combination?
Both. Okay. We started with self-insured employers. Then after we got to an initial critical mass within employers, then we started closing health plans. And now we're also expanding the international footprint. We have a new partnership with the NHS. We are also working with other governments globally. So we are expanding beyond employers, but employers are still an important part of our book of business.
And then give me a flavor of how many people are currently going through the system, or how many clients you have, how many employers, how many.
We have, I should know those numbers. So I can tell you that so far, since 2020, we delivered 7 million AI sessions across all of our population. I think right now, currently, we are enrolling a new member every 1 minute or something like that. And so we are really accelerating in terms of scale.
Okay, so and I assume most of those have been done in the last year. All right, let's talk about some of the stuff that we've gone back and forth on. A couple of things. First off, there is this lawsuit sitting around in San Francisco from an accelerator that you were part of back in 2015, 2016, Aging 2.0. So this looks to me like that you were involved in this accelerator early on, and that they're saying that you contractually agreed to give 5% of the company back then. God knows what percentage it is now, and you're disputing that. The lawsuit looks relatively clear. Now, of course, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying that any accelerator actually helped when you were starting the company, but there is an agreement here. What's your point of view? Why are you disputing this?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot talk extensively as I wanted about that, right? Okay. Because my general counsel will kill me. rightfully so, right? What I can tell you is that we are very comfortable with our position, and I think you will see that in the coming months.
Okay.
And
I mean,
unfortunately, I cannot say more than that.
all right. My commentary is that as you develop, that's going to have to go away some way. And, I don't know how. I would, having seen a lot of accelerators and I actually know the Aging 2.0 folks, I know that plenty of companies go through those and don't necessarily get a lot of help. On the other hand, an agreement's an agreement and it'll get worked out.
By the way, our dispute is not about that.
Okay, so, well, we'll see then. I'd like you to tell me more, but if you're going to tell me more, you won't tell me more. All right. Next,
not my focus, right? Like,
okay, I understand. I understand it's not your focus, and obviously doesn't want to be, but it's out there. Secondly, and this is much more recent, you just raised money and you announced a valuation. So, what's your logic? You raised $40 million from Venture General Catalyst, and at the same time, you announced a move into mental health. And I get raising money to do more stuff, and I know you're going to think about acquisitions, the rest of it. The thing that struck me as a little strange about that is that you raised at a valuation that exceeded the then current valuation of Hinge. You'd announced, I think, that you were doing about 200 million in revenue. They were doing over 300 million. I would assume your valuation, if you'd gone public, and there's no reason why you wouldn't go public, would be lower than theirs just on the revenue basis. But you announced a higher valuation. Who knows what deal you and General Catalyst cut with each other about preference shares and payment back and all that stuff, and that goes on. But tell me, why did you announce at such a high valuation? Are you not paying yourself into a corner when it comes down to actually going public and putting the company on the market?
So first, there are no special terms. We have the same terms of previous rounds, right? Like terms, same vanilla terms. There are no funny liquidation preferences, none of that, right? No special guarantees, like same terms we had in all of, like we have the same terms since our Series A. They never changed, right? And so not in this round. I think it's like, and I'm not talking about any other company, right? Because they are not in the room to defend themselves. I'm just saying that, like, General Motors has a much larger revenue than Tesla, and Tesla has a much bigger valuation.
Okay.
Right. So again, because each company is unique in their own way, right? And so and that's how the reason why I started by, again, there's this misconception about SWOT that we are an MSK company, when actually we started in MSK. But what we are doing is really reinventing with our AI care model how care delivery is done in every single vertical of care that is important, right? Well, the same way that Tesla started with the Roadster, which was a sports car, and they are not a sports car company, right? And so
very unclear as to what kind of company they are, but that's a separate these days.
Yes,
okay. Anyway.
Certainly.
Hopefully, you're not thinking of buying a social media company just on the side, but we'll talk about that.
So this to say that we are comfortable, and by the way, we don't compare ourselves. We don't think our valuation is like right or not because some other company has some other valuation, right? This valuation puts us as the most valuable company in digital MSK, but I think that in itself is constraining our potential because we believe that we are beyond the MSK field. On putting ourselves into a corner regarding going public, look, that's in 2021 we raised our round at $2 billion, right? And everyone thought by then it was very expensive, right? Last year we raised at $3 billion, and everyone thought it was very expensive. And some folks still think that it's still very expensive now at $4 billion. But I think it comes down to, look, can we deliver in the future the growth that we've seen so far? And that's the premise behind this round. And by the way, I'm not saying it's a given, right? Like, we will need to work hard to deliver on the expectations of growth. But that's the premise behind this valuation, is that we will keep growing very fast and we will be successful into other areas of care, as we've been very successful within physical pain, women's physical health, and etc. Right? So that's the premise, right? And so it's really about, like, in the future we will be more successful.
Okay, so two last questions. One is, what's your projection then? I think you mentioned publicly 200 million revenue is the current run rate. I believe, is that right?
240, 240.
Sorry, 240 is the current run rate. And what's your projection for next year with these other areas? And do you have a forward projection or not? Or have you made one?
I don't think we can disclose those publicly, but I can tell you that we expect to grow at the same clip. Actually, we expect to slightly accelerate towards next year.
Okay. So then let's talk about the second thing. You've gone into a new area, mental health, and you should say two things. One is you have a device that's connected to the solution. So tell me what that is. And secondly, that's an incredibly competitive area. There are already several. If you look at the list of companies who raise money, there are many companies who raised hundreds of millions of dollars just in that area alone. Why do you think you have something different? And I understand the connection to stuff you've done already in pain, but why do you think you have something different to offer there when you're moving to such a competitive area? So tell me about the device, and then tell me why you're in
I will start. Well, we are certainly different. I think the question mark is if we are different and successful. And that's yet to be seen, right? But we are certainly different. The reason why we have a device, so all of our solutions, by the way, they have the device with the sensors, they have the AI, and they have the human clinician, right? And if you look at physical pain, that's what happens. If you look at pelvic health, that's what happens. Every single solution uses these three layers of our model. And the reason why is because for the clinician and the AI to be able to act on your care, they need to understand your context, right? They need to be able to observe you. And the hardware piece allows you to observe. As an example, right? I'll give you two examples. There's a direct correlation on your mental health status, on how you are, how you feel, with the fact that you've been spending all day in a dark room, right? So like several studies tell you that you need to go out, get some sun, get that beautiful bright light from the sun that will immediately improve your mental health status. Now the question mark is, if you are not able to observe and sense for that, how do you know if that's happening? How do you know if the person is in the dark room or they are in the outside? And so we look at mental health and we look at all the biopsychological triggers that influence your mental health, and we try to measure them as much as possible, right? And so that's why our new device, which is a wearable band built by us, has a UV sensor that measures if you are on the outside getting sunlight or not. That's one example, right? Another example is right now the current status quo of mental health is if you have an anxiety attack, right? You will be talking about that anxiety attack in 1 week in your talk therapy session, right? Right? How awkward that is, right? And what we want to do is, if you have an anxiety attack, we immediately detect that and we proactively reach out to you with help on the moment. And that's why I say that, well, we are certainly different from all of the other solutions. TBD if we're going to be different and successful, but I do believe that changing mental health care from that one appointment every week to a model where it's 24/7 proactive, right? And also reactive, but proactive, where someone is taking care of your mental health continuously because it's analyzing continuously how you feel. I think it's critical to really solve the mental health crisis, because one other problem with the current status quo is that you see the mental health costs increasing like that, and the incidence and prevalence in mental health going like that, which certainly doesn't make sense. If you have an effective solution and you increase the cost, the investment within that solution, you should expect mental health incidence and prevalence to decrease.
I'm not sure that's works for the rest of healthcare, but maybe. No, I get it. Tell me what else is. I'm being cynical, but tell me about. So tell me what else. What else does the device measure? Measures. You mentioned anxiety, sunlight, whatever.
And of course, we will not disclose everything because we need to catch some trade secrets, right? But it measures. So basically, I'll tell you the reasoning behind the build of the definition of sensors, right? We just look at the clinical literature and saw all the things that you can do, and to improve your mental health that is not talk therapy and pills, right? And then we then overlaid with an analysis, which is how many of those things can we measure through sensors, right? And that's how we define the set of sensors.
And then the program itself also has therapy. What else is in the program?
Yeah, it also has talk therapy. We have like doctors of psychology managing you, where you can have talk therapy. We have that layer, but our belief is that it's not only that layer.
Yeah, I get it. And but do you have psychiatrists who can prescribe medication as well as part
No, we don't.
So it's a non-psychiatric.
Because we believe we can address efficiently. So first, we are not doing SMI. Severe mental health illness, we are not. That's an area we are not touching because I think it's way too complex for us to try to act on that area. So on the triage piece, any detection of severe mental health illness, we refer to a specialist in that area, right? The big bulk of the mental health problem, which is low to mid depression and anxiety, we believe strongly that should be addressed without pills. This being said, we are not dogmatic about it. If someone really needs it, for some reasons, we then refer to a specialist outside of our solution to then prescribe for that.
No.
Also, because it's about that thing about healthcare is not a one-size-fits-all, right? And so we should not be prescriptive in terms of what we expect to work on someone. That's why we refer people out of our solution if needed.
No, I agree, and I think there's very good evidence that antidepressants only work on about 30% of the people who use them, and that we should be thinking about other methods. And this sounds very innovative, so hopefully there's a place for it. All right, I know you have to run. I want to say I've been talking to Bento. He's the CEO of Sword Health. Hopefully you'll come back and tell us about the new areas you're going to go into shortly. Thanks for coming on THCB, and thanks for answering those some of those tough questions. I'll get you on the rest of them later.
That's very important. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.